All right, good morning, everybody. As always, I'm Ginny Davis. Well, I guess not as always, I was not with you last week. So sorry about that. But I'm Ginny, I'm the principal, and welcome. We have a good crowd today, so that's exciting to see. Today, we're going to be talking about the Spartan East Side Promise. Before we get to that, I do want to put in a plug for Parent Boosters. Their first meeting is next Tuesday in the library. It is in person in the library at 7 p.m. And they are doing a membership drive. All the information is in my weekly newsletter. So I want to encourage you guys to join the Parent Boosters. I know Angela and Virginia, you guys are on. And I don't know if you want to do a quick plug before we get started.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Virginia, and I'm here representing the Parent Boosters Club. And as Ginny said, we would like to invite you all to sign up and join our membership. Also get involved. It's really fun and very beneficial for the school. Currently, we have a membership drive going on for the month of September. So if you sign up, you will be entered into a raffle. We have lots of goodies going on. Also, if you make additional donations, you can be entered into additional raffles. So come and join us. Also, as Ginny said, we have our first meeting next Tuesday in the library, where we'll be providing some refreshments and some door prizes. So you may want to check that out as well. And if you just visit our website at PHHSbooster.com, I'll put that in the chat. All the information is there, and it's really easy to sign up and get involved, and really, really fun. So I encourage all of you to check us out.
All right, great. Thank you. Okay, so what we're talking about today is the Spartan East Side Promise. So we have 3 of our 5 counselors with us today. I think I've seen 3 of you come in. Margaret Acid is in here, Shantu Nguyen, and our newest counselor, Jeanette Ortiz. Jeanette, I don't know, you haven't been in one of these yet. I don't know if you want to say hi and introduce yourself real quick because you are new.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ms. Ortiz, and I'm the new addition to the counseling team, and glad to be here this morning joining you.
All right.
Welcome.
And then also joining us today from San Jose State is Amanda Aldama Fernandes. She is the Spartan Eastside Promise program lead. And so she's got a couple of slides to go over with us. And then, of course, as always, if you have questions that you want to put in the chat, please put them in the chat and we will make sure to answer them. So Amanda, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great, thank you so much. So I'll go ahead and share my slides here. Unfortunately, I will be off camera. My Wi-Fi is a little bit out here, so I want to make sure that the slides do stay shared. So let's go ahead and all right, so thank you again so much for having me. My name is Amanda Aldama Fernandes, and I am the Spartan Eastside Promise program lead here. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. I'll pull up the chat just to make sure. Okay, can everyone see my screen clearly? There's nothing blocking?
Yes.
Great. All right, so I'll go ahead and proceed here. Just a little bit about myself. I am the Spartan East Side Promise program lead here in our Office of Student Outreach and Recruitment at San Jose State University. I am a Spartan through and through. I've both graduated from SJSU as well as an alum of the Eastside Union High School District. So this program is incredibly near and dear to my heart, and I am excited to be with you all this morning. So thank you for having me. So I'll be talking about our admissions requirements, as well as a little bit about the Spartan Eastside Promise, what that entails. The first thing to keep in mind is that San Jose State is part of the CSU system. This is the nation's largest 4-year public university system that is comprised of 23 campuses, all the way north from Humboldt down south to San Diego. Our system incredibly prides ourselves on being hands-on as well as student-focused. So what does that mean? Of course, there's homework, there's projects, and learning about the theory, but the CSU is about putting that theory into practice, making sure that students are graduating with the skills they need to be ready for the future workforce demands and the current future workforce demands. Specifically for San Jose State University, almost all of our programs require students to complete an internship before they graduate, making sure that they are building their resumes and again, have that hands-on experience before they even have that diploma in hand. Now, some links that will be very helpful for you, feel free to take a screenshot of this. I can also share this as well. These links go into everything I'm going to talk about. So we have our calstate.edu/apply admissions website. So when your students are planning to apply, this has a step-by-step guide. We have our admissions websites as well as our specific website for impaction criteria, which I'll go over in a moment, as well as our Spartan East Side Promise, Cal State Apply workshops, which we host starting in October every week. And if you have any students that are also planning to apply but are not seniors yet, we do have our How to Get to Cal State, which is CSU specific, not just to SJSU, for 6th through 12th graders in English and Spanish. Also, for SJSU specific information, we do have our Steps to Admissions brochure. So if you have a cell phone nearby, feel free to open up the camera on your phone and hover over that QR code to access this. I'll also drop the link in the chat at the end of my presentation. So diving in a little bit further, I want to start off with clarifying admissions is a 3-step process. So what do I mean by this? Well, first, students must who meet CSU minimum eligibility requirements, which we'll go over, will apply to SJSU October 1st through November 30th of their senior year at calstate.edu/apply for admission consideration to the particular campuses they're looking at. They're going to indicate a primary major and an alternate major, so a first and a second choice. Once we get their application, students are evaluated to determine first, do they meet the CSU minimum eligibility requirements? And second, to determine if they meet SJSU specific criteria, what we call the eligibility index score for their major. And every major has a different score, which we'll cover in a moment. Now, let's say a student doesn't meet that score. They meet CSU minimum, but they don't meet the eligibility index score, the impaction criteria for their major. Well, typically, students would have their application withdrawn and they would not be offered admission to the university. However, if a student from an SESP, a Spartan East Side Promise eligible Eastside Union High School District school, such as Piedmont Hills, applies for admission, they do not meet the eligibility index score for their major, but they meet all other CSU minimum eligibility requirements, they've applied on time, and have an A through G GPA of 2.75 or higher, then rather than having their application withdrawn, they are guaranteed an offer for provisional admission to Undeclared. I have included our website here. I'll include it in the chat in a moment as well, but let's dive into further what this means. So, starting with the CSU minimum eligibility requirements, students must complete their A through G requirements with a grade of C- or better. Now, if students are California residents, they must have a minimum GPA of 2.5, and if they're non-residents, a minimum GPA of 3.0 to be eligible to apply. Now, with that being said, every CSU is different. We are what's called a fully impacted campus, which means that every major has a different eligibility index score requirement that's subject to change each term. Some CSUs are not as impacted, some are not impacted at all. So every CSU to get to their eligibility index score has different requirements. So if your student is applying to multiple schools, please check in with the admissions office of those particular CSUs to see what their requirements are. For us, our admission eligibility requirement, particularly the impaction, again, those eligibility index scores change for every major, which can be found at sjsu.edu/admissions/impaction, as well as the formula that we use to get to those scores. Now, continuing with those A through G requirements, this includes a history, social science, English, mathematics, all passed again with a grade of C- or better. These are the minimum years that we're looking for. So a full year of visual performing arts, language other than English 2 years, and so forth. Now, if the student received a grade of credit or pass during the terms listed here, we will accept that as meeting A through G for that area, but that's not calculated into the GPA. Only the grades of A through F are calculated in the GPA, but they have to be C- or better to satisfy those A through G requirements. We do not accept Ds for A through G requirements. Now, some of you may have heard in regards to testing that there's a couple different things here. First, I want to start off with if your student has taken any AP, IB, or CLEP exams, that we will continue to accept this for general education and lower division if they received a qualifying score, but we need to receive official scores after they've been offered admission. Second, the CSU overall, so not just SJSU, but the CSU system as a whole, is no longer requiring the SAT or ACT test scores for admission eligibility. So they are not going to positively or negatively influence a student's admission eligibility if sent in. However, if a student does have SAT or ACT test scores, they may consider sending those still because they might influence the student's English and math course placement once they're here. We do a process called multiple measures where we look at any test scores that are on file, GPA, the courses taken, and so forth to determine which English and math course a student should start off once they're here. But for admission eligibility, again, GPA is critical in this. The minimum GPA for California residents to be eligible to apply is a 2.5. Now, the way that we get to this GPA is for provisional admission. So that very first step when they're applying October 1st, since they don't have senior year grades yet, we are looking only at their 10th and 11th grade A through G courses. After the student has been admitted, they've said yes to us, then we look at their final transcript once they have senior year grades and verify that those senior year grades still qualify for admission eligibility. In addition to GPA, we use the following supplemental factors. So if a student qualifies for a Cal State Apply Fee Waiver, is the first in their family to attend college, their first generation, or a US veteran, these are what we call supplemental factors that add additional points to the eligibility index score. As you'll see on our website, sjsu.edu/admission/impaction, this outlines exactly how that is calculated. Now, keep in mind, we also have what we call our local preference. So this increased preference has historically given local applicants a GPA increase of 0.25 if they are graduating from a high school in Santa Clara County. Please note that this GPA increase consideration, as well as the supplemental factors, are applied after students meet the CSU minimum eligibility. So if they have a 2.25, this increase is not going to get them to the 2.5. They need to already have the 2.5 or higher. All of this, again, is further outlined at sjsu.edu/admissions/impaction, not including just the formula we use, but also the scores for students who were offered admission for fall 2022 per major. You could be able to see that computer science, computer engineering, those are some of our most impacted programs requiring some of the highest GPAs, but they're all across the board. We have several majors that are in that 2.5 range. Now, if any of your students are considering applying to the animation illustration program, I do have some exciting news. In the past, again, as you've seen, our admission has been strictly GPA, supplemental factors. However, for animation illustration, new for fall 2023, there are new factors in consideration for this. So when a student is filling out their application at calstate.edu/apply, there will be an additional section if they're applying to animation illustration. These applicants must complete what we call a portfolio via slide room. Again, it's built in the application. There's no additional steps or additional counts there. It's built into the application. And this exercise will include several drawing exercises. There's, I believe, a writing component to this as well. And the specific Department of Animation Illustration will review it to determine admission eligibility. So not just GPA based, but also based off of the students, as you would say, a portfolio. Students do not have to necessarily have prior animation illustration experience for this, as it will be, again, based off of those exercises within the application. Now, I do also want to state that students that are pursuing or interested in pursuing a bachelor's in animation illustration must be directly admitted to that program upon their provisional admission offer. It is not possible. This is our one major where it's not possible to change into animation. So if you come in as undeclared, you can't go into animation. If you come in as digital media arts, you cannot switch your major. You have to already be admitted to that program. If there are further questions on this, more information will soon be available at our sjsu.edu/admissions website. But let's say, once again, that a student does not meet the eligibility index score for their program. They're interested in computer science or, entrepreneurship business or hospitality management or nursing, for example. Let's say they don't have that score, but they are graduating from a Spartan East Side Promise eligible high school in the Eastside Union High School District. They have met the CSU minimum requirements of having their A through G's pass with a grade of C- or better. They applied within that timeline of October 1st through November 30th, and they have at least a 2.75 GPA. If that is the case and they do not meet the EI for their major, then we guarantee an offer for provisional admission to undeclared. Now, undeclared means they are starting without a major, but they are not going to be behind in any sense, as we connect students with their academic advisors as early as 2 weeks after they graduate from high school. We actually have a program that happens in March. So even before then, where they get to know who their advisors are from the beginning, know who to connect with. We have a summer transition program where they can be able to learn what they need to do to transition from undeclared to a particular major. What type of support services are available? We have peer mentors with this, one-on-one appointments for both pre-admissions counseling, as well as transitional support and various workshops through the Spartan East Side Promise. More information on our services can be found there, but I do want to emphasize that we are here for your students from college exploration to college graduation. We really want to support them, not just with getting here, but really having the support they need to stay here and graduate with their degree, to make the most out of their experience here at San Jose State University. We are also the only CSU with this type of program that has the recruitment and transition and retention side, as well as the Spartan East Side Promise of this guaranteed admission to undeclared, provided they meet the requirements, is only applicable to San Jose State. It is not applicable to other CSUs. So the admissions checklist. As students are preparing to apply, they want to make sure that they are meeting with their counselor to verify that they are on track to meet their A through G requirements for freshman admissions eligibility, that they review the application guide before they begin. Again, it's at calstate.edu/apply, and we're going to have workshops on this as well to go step by step through the application starting in October. We also encourage that students apply for financial aid, whether that's the FAFSA or the California DREAM Act. The application opens on October 1st. Our financial aid office at sjsu.edu/FASO has more information on these steps, as well as the difference between scholarships, grants, and loans and work study, so students can find more information on this. And lastly, incredibly important, I want to notify you as now, make sure that your students, after they apply, they activate and check what's called their My SJSU account. So the My SJSU account is sent via email, a link to activate that to their students 1 to 2 weeks after they apply with their SJSU ID number. It has some instructions on how to enable what we call two-factor authentication. So students must have a laptop and a cell phone when they're logging in for the very first time. Again, this is not going to be until after they submit their application, but I want to get that plug in now because cannot tell you how many students we've had where they did not follow the instructions or they didn't read a message and it cost them their admission offer. So make sure that your students are reading these messages thoroughly. And if you have any questions, if they have any questions, please ask. We have pre-admissions counseling, both in person and virtually through a virtual front desk, various appointments, as well as workshops on the application. The timeline for students is as follows. Again, applying October 1st, November 30th, making sure that they're checking their SJSU account throughout this time, that they register for our program once they are offered admission, and follow through with all remaining deadlines as listed on our website and in their SJSU account. This is a glimpse of that Cal State Apply Guide. Again, I'm not going to cover too much on this due to time, but we will have workshops on this. So keep in mind that application period is coming up. It's just around the corner, October 1st through November 30th. The deadlines vary per CSU. Schools have different deadlines. It is a $70 fee per school, unless a student is eligible for a fee waiver, in which they can apply to 4 schools for free. However, they won't know if they're eligible for the fee waiver until they've completely filled out the application. So at this time, I'll take any questions. I see there are some, looks like some questions in the chat here. Let me go ahead and navigate.
I'll actually read them to you. So scrolling back to the beginning, how does changing a major work at SJSU? Does it work the same way as UC? I don't know if you can answer that one. Students declare majors at their end of their first year?
Yeah, that's a great question. So students are declaring their major when they're applying for admission. So when a student is applying for admission to SJSU or to any CSU, they are applying specifically for, or let me rephrase, for San Jose State. Some CSUs vary. So for San Jose State, and I can't speak about the UCs, but for San Jose State, they're applying specifically to admission to a major. So they're applying directly to hospitality management or directly to forensic science or animation illustration. Now, if they are applying for undeclared, then they are going to work with their academic advisor to declare a major at a later time. It varies per program. So what I mean by this is some of our majors, after a student has their GPA, their first semester GPA, they'll say, great, you have higher than a 2.0, we'll sign the change of major application and you're in our program, congrats. Other programs like computer science will say, we're glad that you're interested in our program. However, we want to make sure you have this GPA, take these 4 classes, we'll see how you do. And if you meet this GPA, then we'll sign the form and now you're in our program. Again, it varies per program. It can be as early as second semester for some. It can be as late as the end of their sophomore year, but it will depend there on the particular program.
Okay, thank you. Okay, how come the minimum GPA is different for the Spartan Promise 2.75 versus the A through G requirements 2.5?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the reason for this is because this is a special admissions program that is exclusive to students at eligible schools in the Eastside Union High School District. This is not eligible for a student from San Jose High or from Fremont High School or something. And since this is a special admissions program, it does need to retain a special admissions criteria, as we are an incredibly competitive university. As you'll see on our admissions and Paction website, our eligibility index scores vary across the board, but there are several that are incredibly high, like computer science, which requires fairly close to a 4.0. And then there's other majors that are not. So for this to remain our our competitiveness and as well as meet the criteria for a special admissions program, it is slightly higher.
Amanda, I have a quick question. Can you confirm that 2.75, you mentioned a 0.25 grade bump for Santa Clara County residents? Would that be included there or no?
This will get included, yes.
Okay, so students from Piedmont Hills are going to be Santa Clara County residents. So you're saying a student with a 2.5 here will get the 0.25 bump and then would be eligible for the promise?
Correct.
Okay, so essentially it is a 2.5 for the students in Santa Clara County. Is that correct to assume? I just really wanted to clarify this because that's how we had promoted it in the past. And so I just want to make sure.
Yes, so that would be correct.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Okay. Other questions?
And I will to add on to that, As you'll see on our admissions impaction website, even Undeclared, so if a student was applying directly to Undeclared, wherever they're from, Undeclared has its own eligibility index score. So that is also partly where that 2.75 comes into play. And then my information is here. So again, Eastside Promise at sjsu.edu. I will go ahead and put our website in the chat. That way, if you do have any further questions, you could be able to directly set up an appointment with myself or any of our admissions counselors. I'll go ahead and put that here. As well as see the different workshops that we have coming up and support services.
Okay, so we have a question regarding primary and secondary major choices. Someone told me if you don't get admitted for the primary major, the secondary does not really matter because for the secondary major, there might already be enough people applying as a primary. So your chance is not good. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. So it absolutely makes sense. And I will say it depends on the major. So once your students start applying and start that application, if you're sitting down with them, you'll notice that not all of the programs that are available as primary majors are listed as an alternate major. So for example, if a student is applying as computer science as their first choice, most likely they're not going to be able to get an engineering as their second choice because that's typically a very impacted major. A lot of applicants are applying every year. So the way that our alternate major works is if a student doesn't meet the requirements for their first choice, then we look at their second choice. If they meet requirements and if that program still has space to take students after all the people who met requirements for that as their first choice were offered admission. Now, this is again why the Spartan East Side Promise is such an amazing opportunity, because if that was the case and they were graduating from any other school district, if they were said, oh, you don't meet the requirements of your first choice, there's no space left for your second choice, sorry, we do have to withdraw your application, you're not coming to SJSU. That's it, that's the end of the line there. However, with the Spartan East Side Promise, if they have that required GPA, they meet the A through G requirements with C- or better, and have applied by the deadline, then rather than having their application withdrawn, there's this third step of admission, this safety net, if you will, for that guaranteed offer for provisional admission to Undeclared, so they can be able to transition at a later time.
Yeah, thank you for that, Amanda. I think that this is, and this is why I wanted to do this presentation today. I mean, the Spartan East Side Promise has actually been around for several years, but I think, you know, we're making a big push as a district to really emphasize it more and advertise it and make sure that people know about it, because it is such an amazing opportunity that our students, if they do just, they get that C- or better in all of their classes, and we kind of default them into A through G classes anyway. So like they take the classes that, you know, we say that they need to take to graduate, they get, you know, they pass their classes, they have this guaranteed admission, and that's actually an amazing opportunity for our students. I know a lot of times maybe we don't necessarily think of SJSU, you know, because it is right next door, but it is just such a great opportunity for our promise. And as our associate principal, Ms. Pereira, likes to say, San Jose State is the Harvard of the West. Says that all of the time. So are there
Recently ranked one of the #1 most transformative universities. So I can definitely say there's some truth there.
Are there any more questions? It's okay if there's not.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for having me. If there are any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me via email. Our website is in the chat as well if you would prefer to schedule a Zoom appointment with me and your student as well. And I have several calls where I'm speaking with students and their families together, because with the Spartan East Side Promise, and you know, as I mentioned, I was an East Side graduate myself, college truly is a family experience, and we want to make sure that the families and the students are supported throughout this time of college exploration to college graduation.
Yeah, Amanda, there's a question. Will you email this presentation to us? Because what I do is I send out the recording to the parents, and so I can send out the presentation if you share that.
Of course.
Okay, great. Then I will send that out today when I send out the recording.
No problem.
Okay. Great. So I know I'll stay on. I know our counselors can stay on too. Parents, if you have questions about anything else, Amanda, thank you. I don't want to, use up all of your time. So thank you for joining us. But if you guys have questions about anything else, let me know. You guys are very non-questiony today. That's okay. Vivian, you had your hand up. Did you just want to ask your question in person?
Yes, I do. Of course, I don't know much about because my son is a incoming freshman. So I do have a question regarding when my son is absent for the day, and I do make my effort to call in as early as possible, so to let the school know that he's absent for the day. But I do get a voicemail. Or not a voicemail. I call in and leave my message, but then I do get an email saying that my son is absent and for me to call in.
Yes.
And the other thing I want to let the school know is I think the phone number when I call in, it says it's out of service, and then I actually try to call the number on the website, and then it will get me through the answering for the attendance.
Okay, I'll double check the phone numbers. So what's been going on with our attendance office is we had some staffing changes. And so normally we have 2 people working in the attendance office. And so the entire school year, since the school year started, we've only had 1. We have hired somebody. It's just the hiring process sometimes takes a while. So hopefully in the next week or so, we have the second person working in the attendance office, and then it'll go a lot faster. If you leave a message, you're not going to get a response back, but they will eventually clear the absence. So don't worry about that. But I will double check the phone numbers on the website. Thank you for that. Thank you, Amanda, for putting those links in the chat for everybody. Great. Does anybody else have any other questions? While you're thinking about questions, next week our topic is Emily Mathai, who is our school psychologist. She is going to be joining us to talk about executive functioning and what executive functioning is, and when your child does not have great executive functioning skills, what we can do to support them. So this is actually a really important topic because executive functioning can be like a whole wide range of things. So if you have a kid that always has papers, like my son has papers shoved at the bottom of his backpack, that's an executive functioning skill. So we're going to talk about that. There is a question in the chat. I know AP class is very important. How many AP classes does a student really need? If a student only has 1 or 2, will it really hurt admission for college? One of the counselors want to take that? I mean, I can answer it, but
I can answer that.
okay.
Well, it is a good question, but to us, this is a no magic number because, as you know, college have a comprehensive review on student admission. For example, if you search on UC comprehensive review, you will see that they have 14 different factors to consider. For example, GPA, the quality of the senior years, the rigorous level. So there's so many factors. Not every single one can make the final decision. But because, as you asked, I can share my own experience on my caseload. So for my 7 years here, from what I see, I saw that many students who get into competitive school, in my caseload only, usually they have about 4 APs average. And again, I'm just talking for my caseload because there are 5 different counselors, so they may experience different things.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it very much varies and it's very individual. It depends on the student. One thing I would say, and I say this as somebody who used to teach advanced placement classes, the most important thing to look at when determining whether or not you should take an AP class is, do you enjoy that subject matter? You are going to be spending, the student, not you as the parent, but your child is going to be spending a lot of time working on that subject matter. And so if they hate it, then that is going to be awful. So if they hate history, don't take AP history. If they hate science, like science is not their jam, they shouldn't do that. They should take it in the subject area that they really enjoy, because they're going to be spending a lot of time with that. And it very much varies on how many AP classes should a student take. They can take 0 and still get into a 4-year college. You know, the more competitive the college, the more likely, you know, maybe they want to take more APs. It just really is going to depend. I can tell you from my personal experience, my daughter took 1 AP class in in high school. She got into college. She's living her best life. It's going great. So it's okay. The AP registration email that was received yesterday, is this applicable for freshmen, ninth graders only if they're in AP class, which they're probably not in AP classes. That email that went out is only for kids that are currently enrolled in an advanced placement class, because it's how to register for the exam. So if they are not currently enrolled in an AP class, they do not need to register for the AP exam, so they can ignore all of those emails. There's going to be, just know, in like the next month, there's going to be a lot of information coming out about that. If your child is not currently enrolled in an AP class, you can ignore all of those emails because you don't need to worry about it. Okay, it looks like you guys put in some links. Thank you for, I'm assuming that's for the list of the factors. Yes, okay, good. All right, great. Any other questions? How does a student enroll in an AP class? Yeah. So we actually are going to we'll have a Zoom with the principal topic about AP classes. They register for an AP class when they register for their courses for next year. So their courses, they do that in late January, February is when students sign up for their classes for the 23-24 school year. That sounds weird to say, the 23-24 school year. That sounds like, whoa, that's so far away. It's next year. But they do that in late January and February. We will start, let me look. I can tell you guys when we're talking about AP classes. Let me find my list. Oh, sorry, I'm on my 19,000 tabs. We are doing AP as a topic on January 18th. The counselors are going to be with us and talk about scheduling and AP. So January 18th, so mark your calendar for that day to learn more about AP, because that's right when right before they start scheduling, meeting with the students for next year's schedule. When can we schedule a session with the academic counselor? They just need to make an appointment with you guys, right? Yeah, this is actually a great time of year right now to make an appointment. When they do the scheduling, January, February, they don't actually do appointments with parents because they're like swamped because we do a one-on-one meeting with every single student in the school, not seniors, obviously, because they're not scheduling classes for next year because they're going to be graduating. But the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, every single one of them will have a one-to-one meeting with their counselor about scheduling. So during that meeting, no parents are in that meeting because those are quick with the student. But if you want to schedule a meeting with the counselor like now and just kind of talk about stuff and maybe talk about 4-year plan stuff, yes, the parents can come for that. I don't know if Margaret and Jeanette and Shantu, if you want to add anything to that.
Yes, email is the best way to get a hold of us. Sometimes we're in the classrooms or we're doing presentations, so we're not always at our desk at the phone. So email would be the best way to get in touch, and then we can certainly schedule something.
Okay. For extra after school activities or sports, is the college board look at, I'm assuming you mean like the college admissions, because the college board is what runs advanced placement classes and the SAT. So the college board's a separate thing. I'm assuming by your question, you mean the college admissions. Yeah, they look at the whole student and like what everything that they've been involved in, especially private schools look at that a lot. Before high school, colleges do not look at stuff that they did before high school. So that's great for them for their development, but it's not going to help with the college admission process. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that. Yeah. If you're, so if a student feels like they can't learn from a teacher, the teacher doesn't teach much, I would suggest setting up a parent-teacher conference with the student and talk about the concerns. Sometimes, you know, teachers have different teaching styles, and, you know, the student may not really understand why the teacher is teaching that way. So setting up a conference could be a really great opportunity for the teacher to explain, like, this is like what we're doing, and this is like why I teach it this way. So please share the email address as the academic counselor. So our, let me find it on our website. Hold on, let me.
I just linked it, Jenny. So families, you can see how we're assigned on that link that's directly from the school website.
I'll just share my screen real quick.
Okay, thank you. I was looking for it too.
This is the counseling tab on our website. And if you look over here, counselors are divided by last name. So you see here, Ms. Miller Cody is last names A through DR. Then Ms. Shootman is DU through Lee K, because we have lots of Lees. And then Ms. Nguyen is Lee L through Nguyen J. And then Ms. Acid is Nguyen K through SH. And then Ms. Ortiz is SI through Z. So it's divided by alpha. That's how you find out your academic counselor, and you'll see their phone number and their email address. Email is always the better way. I mean, personally, if you ever want to get a hold of me, please email me. I'm terrible about my voicemail. Definitely email is always the best. Okay. We're the parent of a freshman. I want to give a shout out to all the staff at PHHS. Start has been overwhelming with so much info. Everyone in contact has been extremely patient and helpful. Thank you. Thank you so very much. We are sure our child is in good hands. Well, thank you very much. That's very nice to hear. That actually makes my heart happy, because as a parent myself, and I have a daughter that's now in college. I have a son that's in 8th grade. When my daughter started high school, she started high school a year before I became principal here. And so I know what that experience was like as a parent of a freshman and like not knowing anything. And so when I became principal, like that was my personal mission, to have as much information out there as possible and to ease that transition. So thank you. That makes me feel very good. Is there anything students need to know now about being eligible for taking AP classes next year? So thank you, Shantu, for listing prerequisites. So some classes are going to have prerequisites, like, so example, you're going to go into AP Calculus AB. The prerequisite is math analysis. So you can't, like, some subject areas you have to take the prerequisite, like you can't just jump into, you know, going into that. Some others are not as much. Like a lot of you, I'm getting, like, if you're a parent of a freshman going into the sophomore year, typically the only AP class that sophomores are eligible to take is typically AP World. If they're advanced in math, sometimes you might have a sophomore in AP Calculus, but that's actually kind of unusual. AP World History is typically what they're eligible to take their sophomore year. It opens up a lot in their junior and senior year, where there's a lot more options. But we don't typically want sophomores to take a lot of AP classes. I would recommend that as a sophomore, taking one AP is probably just fine. The workload and the expectations in AP classes is quite a bit different. And so they don't want to be overwhelmed too much too fast. I don't know, counselors, if you guys have anything to add to that. Yeah, okay.
They are year-long classes, so sometimes occasionally a student will come in and say, I really want to drop AP World History, for example. It's too hard. So we always tell them when we're scheduling that to know what they are committing to, that is a year-long class, and that, you know, we might not be able to drop a class later. And like you said, you know, it has to be a class that they really enjoy, like a subject that they really enjoy, so that it's, at the end, of course, it is more work. It's a college level coursework, so that it's enjoyable and interesting to them. Otherwise, it can get difficult because there is a higher expectation and a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Well, I think we'll wrap this up for today. Thank you very much, parents, for joining us and asking such great questions. Hopefully you learned a lot about the Eastside Promise today, and hopefully that you'll share that with your kids. We're gonna, I'm gonna share this recording with our teachers so that they know about it too, so that they can talk to students in the class about like, hey, don't forget about San Jose State, and, you know, use that as like a motivating, make sure you get that C or better in the class, because that's really the first step. It's like they have to get the grades in the class now. So thank you. And like I said, hopefully you'll join us next week. I think you're going to find the conversation about executive functioning fascinating. If your kid has ever struggled a little bit in school, likely that they've got some executive functioning issues there. It's very common. I think all of us have some executive functioning issues. And so learning some strategies on how to help your child with that is really, really valuable. So hopefully you guys will find that very informative next week. So until then, have a wonderful week. Enjoy the much cooler weather and the fact that the water is on today. No disasters so far. So thank you all so much. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.